in the Actifio Global Manager, we have protection established across two servers, DLab vCenter, which I did as a test, and the CMS Lab SQL1 dev. And that is a full VM snapshot of the CMS Lab SQL1 dev machine. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to mount that snapshot to the client NBU client, DLab NBU client. That's a net backup client that is protected by a NetBackup 5230 appliance. So we're going to take the backup to Actifio Sky of SQL1 Dev. We're going to mount that image to DLab NBU client. Then we're going to shoot DLab NBU client from the net backup side, and that will cut out to either disk or tape or what have you. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to, we've taken the backup, we've established protection, and so we've been taking snapshots over the last couple days. So we'll take our most recent snapshot, and we're going to mount this snapshot. And we're going to mount it to DLab NBU client. It's going to mount from this storage pool, so it's just mounting the snap pool. We're going to mount all of the different data, the volumes. So we can look at the system monitor, and that's going to give us an indicator of the success of the snap as it moves forward. Logging into the client DLab NBU client, we can see that there are 4 volumes on the client now, the C, E, F, and G drive. This is a clone of SQL1 Dev. So while this is no longer a SQL server, this is useful because it's just going to show us that there are 4 drives, and it's going to show us the consumption of those volumes. As this mount happens, new mount points will appear here, and each mount point will be a volume that is the backup of SQL1 Dev. We can now see that the mount has succeeded. Look at the details. So it is where it's coming from. It shows the host name, the template. It shows what it mounted to. And so if we go to Application Manager, we go to Active Images, we see that the CMS Lab SQL1 Dev is mounted to DLab NBU client. So if we go back over to DLab NBU client, we can see that there are 4 new volumes, W, X, Y, and Z, and that they have pretty much, well, except for C, which obviously some changes, but the others have the same file sizes as the original drives had, as far as total space and free space. So this is a successful mount on the DLab NBU client. At this point, we now want to take a backup of this data. So we're going to go over to the NetBackup console. The DLab NBU client is configured as a client. In this case, we've actually constructed exceptions for C, E, F, and G. So it's actually not going to back up the local directories. And then the policy is named NBU client -SQL1 Dev, the origin server, -Win2K8R2, the origin architecture. It's got just the DLab NBU client, and backup selections is all local drives. So everything gets mounted to NBU client, and when we take a backup of NBU client, it will shoot everything it can see minus C, E, F, and G, which are the ones it started with. So we'll take a backup of NBU client at this time. And we can see that it's going to allocate a bunch of resources, and it's going to scan all of the file systems, and then it's going to begin writing. All right, once our backup completes from the NetBackup side, we're going to test a restore. In this case, we're going to go back into the NetBackup admin console, go to the Backup, Archive, and Restore tab. We're going to select, we're going to add DLab NBU client. The source client for restores will be DLab NBU client, and we're going to restore this to the restore server, CMSCO SQL1R, and the policy type is going to be MS Windows. So looking at this, the backup files that we have access to, the C and system state are just from earlier tests. The files we're interested in are in SQL data. We have the quoteworks.mdf database, and in the SQL logs directory, in logs, we have the quoteworks1 LDF log file. So we're going to select both of these files. They're going to get restored to this client, which has a net backup client installed on it. This is simulating our bare metal reconstruction of a SQL server. So when we restore, we do want to restore them into the appropriate directories because they're not W and Y. So if we go over to our restore server, we see that our database volume is E, and we see that our logs volume is G. So we're going to change the database file over to the E drive, and we're going to change the log file over to the G drive. That's going to put them back into the place that they were pulled from on the origin server. So we will click Start Restore, and we will view progress of the restore. And it's going to find these just went to an MSDP, so it's not actually going to have to move tape around, which is pretty nice, although this would be the same process that we would use for going to and from tape. It's going to show that it's renaming the files for us. And if we look at our restore server, we see that it is creating a new QuoteWorks MDF for us. We don't want to mess with it just yet because it's not yet done restoring. Oh, now it looks like it's almost done. You can also come out and look at the detailed status. We're about halfway done. All right, so the restore job is successfully completed, and it has restored both files. We can go look at those files and note that it has restored the data file, and it has restored the log file. So at this point, we can start up SQL. And if we go to databases, we can attach. And in this case, we're going to add a database. All files. We'll go to the E drive. We will go pick the file that we restored, quoteworks.mdf. And it's going to understand that that is the QuoteWorks database, and it already knows where the log file is. We'll just verify that both of these are correct, and it looks like they sure are. The G drive, logs, quoteworks1 LDF. So at this point, we're going to click OK, and it's going to attach these back to our SQL. At this point, we can see that we have a QuoteWorks database that's been restored. We can look at tables, and we can see that all of the data that we were hoping to get to is absolutely there. So this concludes our proof of concept demo of Actifio backups that are then mounted to an NBU client, that are then backed up to tape using that backup, and then restored to a bare metal SQL server, and then reattached. Thank you.